I only had $100, that's it, just a single bill, sitting there staring back at me like a challenge. It's strange how a piece of paper can feel so heavy, how it can carry the weight of your hopes, your fears, and your future all at once. My last bit of cash, scraped together from odd jobs and loose change, felt both heavy and insignificant. It was the sum of every late night, every early morning, every time I said no to something I wanted. It was all I had left, and it felt like both a burden and a lifeline. This wasn't seed money for a big dream, or a bet on a wild idea. It was survival, plain and simple. Every hour of work, every skipped coffee, every sacrifice was in that bill. I remembered the times I'd passed on small comforts, telling myself it would be worth it. Now all those choices had led to this moment. I stared at it, paralyzed by fear. What could I do with so little? The world measures fortunes in millions. I had $100 in a mountain of doubt. It felt like the universe was laughing at me, daring me to try, knowing the odds were stacked against me. I could spend it, patch a bill, or just hold on tight and hope for a miracle. Every option seemed to lead nowhere. The temptation to just give in, to let the fear win, was strong, but deep down, I knew that wouldn't change anything, but that felt like giving up. Was this all I was worth? Was this the peak of my financial life? Was I really going to let a single bill decide my story? The thought stung, but it also sparked something inside me, a stubborn refusal to let this be the end. Then, a stubborn thought. What if this wasn't the end, but a beginning? Maybe this money could be a seed, not a tombstone. Maybe, just maybe I could turn this last 100 into something more. I started to see possibilities instead of dead ends. I decided, I wouldn't let this $100 define my limits. It would be a symbol of my resolve. I would use it as a test, a challenge to myself to think bigger, to act smarter, to refuse to settle for less than I was capable of. I'd turn this tiny sum into something meaningful, or go down trying. It was time to stop being afraid and start being smart. This was my line in the sand. From this moment on, I would move forward, not backward. The last $100 wasn't the end of my story, it was the first page of a new chapter. My hands shook, a tremor running through my fingers as I hovered over the keyboard. It wasn't just nerves, it was the weight of every decision, every hope, every fear I'd carried about money for years. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, a steady drumbeat of anxiety and anticipation. As I opened my laptop, the familiar glow of the screen felt different tonight. This wasn't just another evening of scrolling or streaming. This was the night I would try to change my future, even if it was just in a small way. I was about to invest my last $100. It wasn't much, but to me, it was everything I had left to risk. The number stared back at me from the brokerage account, both a lifeline and a leap into the unknown. Not spend, not save, invest. Into a world I barely understood. I typed how to invest $100 into the search bar, hoping for clarity. Instead, I found a maze of advice, jargon, and warnings. Some said to buy crypto, others said to stick with bonds, and a few insisted I was better off keeping my money under the mattress. The more I read, the more overwhelmed I felt. It was easy to feel lost, like the system was built to keep people like me out. Every article seemed to assume I already knew the rules, but I was just trying to find a way in. But after hours of research, I chose a simple path, a low-cost S&P 500 index fund. I wasn't betting on a single stock, I was betting on the whole economy. It felt boring, but safe. Boring was good. I realized that sometimes, the smartest move isn't the flashiest one. It's the one that lets you sleep at night. With a deep breath, I clicked, confirm. The money was gone from my account and for a moment I panicked. But then, something shifted. Suddenly, I felt calm. I'd taken action. For the first time in ages, I felt in control. Maybe I'd lose it all. Maybe nothing would change overnight, but at least I was moving forward. That $100 now had a job to do. It was a small step, but it was mine. I had no idea what would happen next. But I was done letting fear make my decisions. I was finally in the game, and that was worth more than any dollar amount. This was my leap of faith, and it was just the beginning. The first weeks were painfully slow. Every day felt like a test of my patience and resolve. I'd sit at my desk, staring at the numbers on the screen, willing them to move, to show some sign that all this effort was worth it. But the progress was almost imperceptible, like watching paint dry or grass grow. I checked my account constantly, hoping for a miracle. Each time I opened the app, my heart would race, half expecting to see a sudden jump, a sign that things were finally taking off. But reality was far less dramatic. Instead, I saw pennies gained, pennies lost. The numbers flickered up and down, never straying far from where they started. It was like being on a treadmill, moving, but not really getting anywhere. One day up 15 cents, the next down 20. The fluctuations felt random, almost mocking. I started to wonder if all this effort was just a waste of time. It felt pointless. Was this really how wealth was built? Was I missing some secret, or was everyone else just as lost in the beginning? But I learned patience. Real growth is slow, steady, and often invisible at first. Like a seed buried in the soil, progress happens beneath the surface long before you see any results. I realized that the early days are about building habits, not just chasing quick wins. So I set a rule for myself. No more obsessively checking every hour. I would only look at my account once a week, no matter how strong the urge. I forced myself to check my account only once a week. It wasn't easy at first. The temptation was always there, but I stuck to it. The urge to obsess faded. I started to trust the process. I found myself enjoying small moments away from the screen, feeling lighter and less anxious. I read stories of others who started small, who waited months or even years before seeing real results. Their patience paid off, and I wanted that for myself. Saving would have left my money stagnant, eroded by inflation. I realized that simply holding on to cash wasn't enough. It was actually losing value over time. Investing put my money to work, even if the gains were tiny. Each cent earned was a small victory, a sign that my money was doing something, however modest. I started tracking my progress, not just in dollars, but in discipline. Every week I stuck to my plan, felt like another step forward. My mindset shifted. Money wasn't just to be hoarded, but used for growth. I began to see each small gain as a building block, not just a number. After a month, my account read $101.20, a profit of $1.20. It was a tiny sum, but it felt monumental. It sounded like nothing, but it was proof. Proof that the system worked, that my patience was paying off, even if only in small increments. My money had made money, while I slept. That realization changed everything. For the first time, I felt the power of compounding, of letting time do the heavy lifting. It wasn't a windfall, but it was a victory. A small, quiet win that meant more than any lottery ticket ever could. That small gain gave me confidence to keep going. It was a sign that I was on the right path, that persistence would eventually pay off. The seed had sprouted, even if it was just a fragile green shoot. Growth had begun, and I was determined to nurture it. I realized, this is how it starts, small but real. Every journey begins with a single step, and now, I was finally moving forward. After that first win, I became obsessed with compounding, earnings generating more earnings. It's simple, your money makes a profit, then that profit makes more profit. Like a snowball, it starts small but grows faster over time. Imagine doubling a penny every day for a month. By day 30, you'd have millions. The market doesn't double your money daily, but the principle is the same. My $100 earned $1.20 in a month. Next month, I earned on $101.20. Each gain, no matter how small, became part of the new principle. Over time, the growth accelerates. The most important ingredient? Time. The earlier you start, the more powerful compounding becomes. Someone investing $100 a month at 25 will have far more than someone starting at 45. I didn't have much money, but I had time. That was my greatest asset. Compounding rewards patience, not perfection. The magic isn't in the amount, it's in starting early and letting time do the work. That's the real secret. For years, growth was slow. I added what I could, $25, $50 here and there. My $100 became a few thousand. Encouraging, but not life-changing. I doubted if compounding was real. The curve was flat, the progress gradual. Then around year 5, something changed. Gains got bigger. A good day meant $50 or $60 added. A good month, several hundred. My investments were earning more than I was contributing. This was the tipping point. The snowball was rolling on its own. The graph steepened. What took 5 years to build, I gained in a year. The feeling was electric. The theory was now reality. My patience was finally paying off. The numbers grew faster each year. The balance looked surreal, like a phone number. I remembered that first nervous investment. The contrast was staggering. Compounding had become real and unstoppable. As my portfolio grew, my role changed. I stopped micromanaging and started protecting the engine I'd built. I kept investing, stayed diversified, and didn't panic during downturns. Market dips became opportunities, not crises. The fear faded, replaced by quiet confidence. I'd seen the process work through ups and downs. Dividends alone bought new shares each quarter. The growth became self-sustaining, a beautiful machine. Daily gains sometimes exceeded a week's pay at my old job. Wealth wasn't about working harder, but making my money work for me. The journey taught me, building wealth is about behavior, not genius. Consistency, discipline, and emotional control matter most. The snowball, once a flake, was now an avalanche, all thanks to time and compounding. The biggest change wasn't in my bank account, it was in my mind. Money went from a source of stress to a tool for freedom. I left behind a scarcity mindset and embraced abundance. Financial security gave me choices to pursue passion, leave toxic jobs, take risks. My time was no longer traded for money, my money worked for me 24/7. That's true financial freedom, owning your time. I became intentional, not fearful, with money. I realized I could shape my own financial reality. That first $100 was a vote of confidence in myself. The fortune was the outcome. But the real prize was who I became, confident, patient, in control. The journey was about more than money, it was about agency. I was no longer a victim of circumstance, I was the architect of my future. The contrast is stark. Before I was anxious, limited, surviving on $100 in fear. My world was small, my future uncertain. After I have financial peace, freedom, and choice. My fortune isn't just a number, it's a tool for a better life. My decisions are driven by long-term goals, not short-term panic. The numbers tell a dramatic story. $100 became millions not by luck but by discipline and patience. The real transformation was internal, from doubt to belief, fear to hope, powerless to empowered. The biggest obstacle wasn't money, it was fear. My story proves anyone can overcome that. The journey from scarcity to abundance is possible. The first step is the hardest, but it changes everything. I am living proof. I shared my story to show you what's possible. You don't need a finance degree, wealthy family, or a big idea. The world of investing can seem intimidating, but you belong. The biggest myth is, I don't have enough to start. I began with $100. You can start with less. The amount doesn't matter, starting does. Every day you wait, you rob your future self of compounding's power. Don't get lost in details. A simple, low-cost index fund is enough. Automate your contributions, no matter how small. Make a plan, then let time do the work. Consistency beats complexity. So here's my message. You don't need a lot. Just start now. Open the account. Transfer the money. Make the first investment. Face the fear and do it anyway. Your future self will thank you for the courage you showed today. The power to change your life is in your hands. Start now.